I would not buy in Hong Kong right now, but don't listen to me. Do it your way. I don't think never in world history has there been such gigantic money printing ever. And money printing in the past has always led to higher prices and more inflation. And that will undoubtedly continue. I'm not saying inflation is good or anything else, but a way to protect yourself is to own the things that go up in prices.
Hi, everyone. We are very, very happy again to invite the legendary investor, Mr. Jim Rogers, today with you again. Last time we had a 2-part interview and the reaction was very, very good. And we're super delighted that Mr. Jim Rogers were able to accept our interview again today. Thanks again, Mr. Rogers, today, taking your time out to do this interview with us. We look forward to talking to you today.
I'm delighted to be here.
All right. So another quick introduction about Mr. Jim Rogers. I'm sure most of you are aware that Mr. Jim Rogers is a co-founder of the Quantum Fund and also a global investment partnership. Though Mr. Rogers decided to retire at the age of 37, he continues to manage his own portfolio. And now he's the manager of Rogers International Raw Materials Fund LP, as well as Rogers Material Index Fund and Rogers Raw Material Fund, which focus on top companies in agriculture, mining, metals, and energy sector as well. Last time he spoke, I think it was almost a year ago. A lot has happened since then. Mostly positive, some negative recently. So we would definitely like to pick your brain a little bit on what's happening recently and what's to come in the near future. So the first thing we want to ask you is Mr. Jim Rogers, as a board member of the Geo Energy Resources Limited, from a management perspective. So right now, there's a huge global supply chain issue that is basically changing the world right now as we know it. So do you think that's going to be a big factor in the year 2022 in the commodity market as well as the stock market or any other markets that is important to us?
Well, thank you, Chaz. Supply chains, yes, are certainly under pressure right now, not just because producing the stuff, it's also shipping the stuff. Shipping lanes are clogged, ports are clogged, partly because of the virus. And it's very hard to get people to go into the fields if they're sick or if they're afraid of being sick. So no, supply chains have been and are being disrupted. I presume that the virus will end someday. And once that ends, we will go back to some kind of supply chain normality. But in the meantime, yes, of shortages of many things developing because of supply more than anything else, and transportation.
Yeah, so do you think that's going to be a positive impact on the commodity price in the next year, or maybe even negative?
It already has been a positive, or something has been a positive on commodity prices. As you probably know, most commodity prices are up nicely in the last year or so. There are more important things, though, than just the virus. I mean, there's huge amounts of money printing all over the world. I don't think never in world history has there been such gigantic money printing ever. And money printing in the past has always led to higher prices and more inflation. And that will undoubtedly continue because the central banks don't know any better. They want to keep their jobs, and they think that they can keep their jobs by printing a lot of money. It's not good for anybody watching this, but they don't care. They care about their jobs.
Understood. Yep. Basically, you mentioned, and they're just doubling down this year, more and more printing. And like you mentioned, it's basically what happened in the United Kingdom many years ago. That was very interesting of you mentioning it before. All right. So let's turn the page a little bit on the Chinese side of things. So the past year, we have seen the Chinese government crack down on a lot of different sectors and even on raw materials such as coal, natural gas, etc. So if I'm an investor for deciding what to invest in the year 2022, do you think this is going to be a huge factor next year in terms of the regulation in China or as well as other countries?
Always have to worry about governments and regulation and something they will do. Governments do strange things. I'm not talking about China now, I'm talking about all governments throughout history. So yes, you have to consider the possibilities. Some of the things the Chinese have done, I know are good. They cracked down on a lot of the lending. There was huge amounts of lending over the computer. I used to go in offices and I would see all these people on their computers trying to get people to borrow money from other people. It was unregulated, uncontrolled. Thank goodness they have cracked down on that. It was going to lead to, and it may still lead to, a huge disaster. The education things they've cracked down on. I like having private tutors for my children. It gives me an advantage, but is it fair? I don't know, because people who cannot afford it cannot have the private tutors. So maybe China's doing a good thing. I live in Singapore. I've advocated it for Singapore, but they are not changing. They'll do it their way, and they should do it their way. So some of the things that they've done are good. Property, as you know, is coming down. Chinese property got wildly overpriced in many cities. I hope they continue to drive down property prices. So some of the things they've done, in my view, are good, but they don't have to listen to me. I'm not Chinese. I don't live there or anything else. But we do have to consider what's going on. There are some areas of the world economy and the Chinese economy which maybe one should be skeptical of. Property is turning into a bubble in some countries, Korea, New Zealand, other countries raise bubbles, and they always end badly. So the sooner you stop a bubble, the better off. But we have to consider all of these things. And I've been around long enough to know that governments come up with some of the strangest things you can ever imagine. So you have to consider that, and don't let somebody tell you, oh, they would never do that, because they might do that, whatever that is.
Completely agree. Yeah, that's definitely, government intervention is one big thing that we'll definitely be looking out for next year. Speaking of properties, you mentioned in China that there's a cool down, but right now I think a lot of our listeners are wondering what your view is towards the Hong Kong properties market. So we have seen COVID happening. We have seen the political issue happening around 2 years ago in Hong Kong. But still, we see the property prices in Hong Kong go way up. It just broke the record high recently again. What is your take on someone like myself that I'm still kind of bullish on the Hong Kong market in the near future, actually? I want to see what your take is on this matter.
I know that those prices are very, very, very high. Maybe they're going to double again. But it's in my experience, when things are really wildly expensive, I stay away. Now, some people jump in and make money, so don't listen to me. But I do know that on a historic basis, and you compare it to the world, Hong Kong property prices are very, very high. I would not buy in Hong Kong right now, but don't listen to me. Do it your way.
Of course. Okay, great. Thanks for your insight. Let's go back to a little bit about this is something I am very interested in. So crude oil, as we saw last year, crash. Me personally, I've never seen something like that. Oil price went to negative, and this year rebounds sharply. It went up almost close to $80+ recently, and now back to $60-something right now because of the recent COVID outbreak. So do you think we might visit crude oil back to $100 a barrel in the next 6 months or so, or maybe even like by the end of 2022?
I'm not very good at market timing. I'm optimistic about energy prices. In the next 6 months, I don't know. It'd be a big stretch. But sure, if war breaks out or something, of course, it would go far above that. But I certainly do not doubt that sometime in the next year or two, that energy oil prices will go to $100 again. You know, the all-time high is nearly 150. So even if it goes to 100, it's still substantially down from the all-time high. And known reserves of oil continue to decline all over the world. Fracking came along and alleviated that, but that bubble has burst. There's still fracking, but it's no longer a bubble with everybody jumping in. I own energy and I don't plan to sell.
Okay, interesting. Me too. So I also own energy. Actually, since last year, I've been saying that oil negative price is ridiculous. So definitely a good chance. And then this year went up and down. So next year, I still think energy prices will still have a very good opportunity for investment.
That was just an aberration of a few minutes on the futures exchange. That was not many people were getting paid to take oil. That was not the world energy market or the world oil market at all.
Yeah. Just the futures, yeah. So the last thing that I think most people are concerned, especially in North America, is the inflation prices. Everything, food prices, property prices, everything has gone up a lot. So actually reaching the CPI, PPI, and PCE, all those data levels have reached highs for many decades. So for people that live in North America, some of our subscribers live in North America, what do you think is a good investment strategy to hedge this current inflation risk?
When there's inflation, it means prices rise. If you own the things where the prices rise, you benefit, you make money. And obviously real assets, whether it's wheat or oil or whatever it happens to be, nickel. If you own those things, then you benefit from inflation. I'm not saying inflation is good or anything else, but a way to protect yourself is to own the things that go up in prices. And then you not only protect yourself, you benefit as well.
I think that's great. That's perfect. Yeah, exactly. That's what I always tell people. Inflation is not scary. All you got to do is just buy the things that are price increase. Even watches or luxury items, the prices are going through the roof. I've been saying that for a while as well. All right, great. Mr. Jim Rogers, thanks again today, taking your time out to do this first part of our interview with us. We have learned a lot about what your take about next year. So for the next session, part 2, we're going to be focused on a little bit about the stock market, as well as some new upcoming type of assets such as NFTs and cryptocurrency as well. So thanks again, Mr. Jim Rogers, today for taking your time out. We look forward to hearing from you for part 2.
2021年咧，終於嚟到尾聲啦！希望大家呢年咧過得充實啦，亦都咧及早為自己未來打算噃。join咗我網上10年財務自由課程朋友咧，就知道財資嘅重要性啦。加入咗課程朋友咧，你應該都加入咗師傅 Lifetime Coaching 噶啦。1月份 topic 咧就會講10年財務自由咧，失敗嘅原因係乜嘢咧？唔係因為揾唔到有回報嘅項目噃。新朋友首先咧可以去咗10年財務自由1小時免費簡介工作坊先，參加咗課程之後就自動加入咧師傅 Lifetime Coaching 嘅私人群組啊！呢個私人群組嘅開放咧係限時噶，每個月咧我哋都會討論下唔同財務自由嘅秘技噶。私人群組入邊仲會分享財智功課啊、消息啊、每月淺談等等，喺你上完堂之後咧俾足你永久 support 添，千祈唔好錯過啦！未聽過呢個財務自由系統呢，記住咧去下面免費1小時簡介工作坊了解下詳情啦。
Jackie Sir 加股壇劉元德嘅0至千萬加速器入邊會學到佢哋嘅秘技啊，包括 REIT 啦、短炒、美股組合、CFD 等等㗎。參加咗課程就會自動加入 Lifetime Coaching 嘅私人群組。1月份嘅主題係如何運用 ETF 做對沖，跌市時都可以鎖定盈利啊！有興趣嘅話，快啲掃下個 QR code， 免費睇下佢哋嘅簡介加工作坊同埋報名啦。Interactive Brokers 係師傅用咗10年以上嘅交易平台，入到 IB 嘅網頁，只要撳返右上角嘅免費試用，登記返一啲簡單嘅資料呢，就可以免費使用平台交易啦。富翁團隊又請人啊！今次係請香港嘅同事啊！我哋請緊社交媒體編輯，如果有興趣加入又符合我哋列出嘅要求嘅話呢，就記得 send CV 俾我哋啦。1月21日有 Miss K 嘅免費投資入門理財指南分享會，有興趣嘅話快啲去報名啦！想每日緊貼大市，即刻下載我要做富翁嘅應用程式。我哋每日收市前都會同大家詳盡分析㗎，約定你啦！
想緊貼我哋，記得訂閱我要做富翁嘅 YouTube、Instagram 同埋 Facebook。如果想更加緊貼大市同直播分析嘅話，可以訂閱富翁電視 MTTV 啦。另外，想跟我哋環球睇樓，記得去訂閱我要做世界頻道啦。